ahead and get into our sermon. So today we are continuing our series of Heroes on the Faith, and today we're going to be talking about Jephthah and his daughter. Now you might once again say, who? This is once again another judge in the book of Judges that not a lot is talked about. And this goes back to the Hebrews, that Hall of Faith, Hebrews 11. Jephthah is named in there. So that's why we're covering him. We're going to see how he displays, and his daughter displays, faith today. But the title for our message is God the Hero Who Makes the Best Out of People's Bad Decisions. And because we want to see how God is the ultimate hero in this, and so we're seeing how God makes the best out of bad decisions. It reminds me of this. You ever heard this phrase? Making lemons out of lemonade. You know, if life gives you lemons, what do? You make lemonade out of it. So we're going to see how God can turn a bad situation and make it into the best possible. So go ahead and turn with me to Judges 11. Judges chapter 11. While you're turning, there's some context, is that, so Jephthah is a judge who lived about 200 years after Gideon. Last week we talked about Gideon. And Gideon was a judge, and in between him and Jephthah, there were several judges that there's not a lot of information given about. Well, what's happening at this time period, if you remember, we looked at this graph before, so Israel keeps on doing this cycle, this circle, during this time of Judges. So what happens is Israel serves the Lord, you know, they're worshiping Him, they're enjoying Him, but then they get relaxed and then they fall into sin and idolatry. Well, in order to bring them back, God allows oppression. He allows people to come in and to either enslave Israel or come to attack Israel. And that's where we're at right here, right now with the story of Jephthah. Israel was serving God after the times of Gideon. Now they've started following sin and idols. And so in order for God to bring them back, He allows this hardship. And right now, the people that are oppressing them are the Ammonites, and they are outside of Israel about to attack. And so what Israel does is they are going to cry out to the Lord, and God is going to raise up a judge, and that judge is going to be Jephthah. So we're going to see in Judges 11 Judges 11 verse 1, we're going to get some more information about who Jephthah is. So look at Judges 11 verse 1. It says, "Now Jephthah the Gileadite as a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of a harlot, and Gilead begat Jephthah. And Gilead's wife bare him sons, and his wife's sons grew up. And they thrust out Jephthah, and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brethren, and dwelt in the land of Tob. And there were gathered vain men to Jephthah, and went out with him." So this verse gives us two main facts about Jephthah. First of all, he's the son of a harlot. Nowadays we would call it a prostitute. So even for nowadays, someone that's a child of a harlot, you could say, that wasn't born on purpose, that would be hard. But back in that day, it was a really hard thing for a child that was born in this circumstance. It was so bad for Jephthah that it tells us that he gets kicked out of his family because he was born this way. And it wasn't just a polite saying, "Oh, can you please go?" It's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and they tell you to get out, just push you out, it's more like this, kicking you out. Well, they did it in a very hateful and mean way. Just, we don't want you, Jephthah, we hate you because you were born like this. So, first of all, we find out that he's son of a harlot, he's kicked out, and then second of all, it tells us that he's a mighty man of valor. Now, does that phrase sound familiar? We talked about it last week with Gideon, how God approached Gideon and called him a mighty man of valor. But for Gideon, was he like that at that point? No, he did not start out like this. Well, evidently, Jephthah, when we're coming into this narrative, he's already earned the title of mighty man of valor by his actions. So, knowing that, what do the children of Israel do coming to Jephthah? Look at verse 4. It says, "And it came to pass in process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. And they said unto Jephthah, Come and be our captain, that we may fight with the children of Ammon. So the Israelites, they say, we need a general, we need a judge for our army. And so they go to Jephthah. Well, they come to Jephthah and say, oh, we need you. What does Jephthah say to this? Look at verse 7. And Jephthah said unto the elders of Gilead, Did not ye hate me and expel me out of my father's house? And why are you come unto me now when ye are in distress? And the elders of Gilead said unto Jephthah, Therefore we turn again to thee now, that thou mayest go with us and fight against the children of Ammon, and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. And Jephthah said unto the elders of Gilead, If ye bring me home again to fight against the children of Ammon, and the Lord deliver them before me, shall I be your head? And the elders of Gilead said unto Jephthah, The Lord be witness between us, if we do so, do not so according to thy words. So when these children of Israel come to Jephthah and say, oh, we need you back. We need you to come help us. Well, Jephthah says, didn't you kick me out for being born this way, for nothing that I did, and now that you're in need, you want me back? It's kind of like if you were part of a club as a kid, and like, you're kicked out, but then your fort needs to be defended, so they invite you back to help defend your fort against the girls, right? So you're like, okay, I got kicked out before, but now when you need me, you want me back? That's what Jephthah's saying. He's saying, you didn't want me before, but now you want me back just because you have this enemy? Well, the leaders plead with Jephthah, and Jephthah agrees. He says, okay, I'll come back and help you. We're going to talk later about how much faith and love that took for him just to come back in the first place. Well, Jephthah, he decides, okay, I'll help you. And the first thing that Jephthah does, he interacts with the king of Ammon, who's attacking Israel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize verses 11 through 27, just for sake of time. What happens here is that Jephthah talks to the king of Ammon, and he says, why are you invading us? Well, the king of Ammon says, well, I was looking back through history and realized that Israel took some of our land. And so we're going to come and take that land back. What Jephthah says is, no. When we look back through history, I can prove through our history that's not the case. We never took any of your land. It's kind of like if Brazil said, oh, you stole our land, so we're going to come and invade you, America. You're like, no, we can go back through history and prove that that's not the case. So that's what Jephthah does to the king of Ammon. But then, look how the king responds. Look at verse 28. 28 of chapter 11. It says, Howbeit the king of the children of Ammon hearkened not unto the words of Jephthah, which he sent him. So, what the king of Ammon says is, I don't care. In other words, he just made this up. I mean, it's kind of like if a police officer pulled you over and gave them your driver's license and he still doesn't believe that you have a valid driver's license. You're like, no, it's right here. And the police officer's like, I don't care. That's what the king of Ammon is doing. He's like, I don't care if you have proof. I'm still going to invade you anyway. So he's probably just making this up. So most likely at this point, Jephthah is a little rattled. It seems like his plan was to reason with the king, and the king is not listening to reason. So in response to this Jephthah being rattled, look what he does in verse 29. It says, The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed over Gilead, and Manasseh passed over Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed over unto the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord, and said, If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whosoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in the peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. So what happens here is Jephthah makes a vow to God, a promise. And he says that, God, if you give me and Israel this victory, I'm going to promise you that when I come home, the first person, or the first thing that I see, and the way that the English translates it, is I will offer them as a burnt offering, a sacrifice. And so he makes this deal with God. You can almost think about this like a bargain. Like, God, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. But it wasn't just a bargain. It was also like a binding contract. So this was not just any small promise. No, this was a big deal. He's making a binding contract with God. So after he makes this contract, what does Jephthah do next? Look at verse 32. Verse 32 says, So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. And he smote them from Aror, even until thou comest to Minnith, even 20 cities, and unto the plain of the vineyards, with a very great slaughter. Thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. So what happens here is Jephthah goes forth in faith, believes that God can give them the victory. God gives them the victory. They overcome this enemy. Well, after they overcome the enemy, look what happens next. Look at verse 34. It says, And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances, and she was his only child. Beside her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass when he saw her that he rent his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and thou art one of them that trouble me. For I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. So do you remember the promise, the vow that Jephthah made? He said, whoever or whatever comes out to me first when I get home from this battle, if you win the victory, God has won the victory, he says, I will sacrifice them. Well, who's the first person that he sees? His daughter, his only child. And when he hears this, he tears his clothes, he weeps, and he's saying, I can't believe I made this promise, and it's my daughter I have to do this to. Have you ever had to go home and tell someone something that you didn't want to tell them? I mean, imagine if you went home and you had to tell your spouse that, so I made a bet that if I lose, you would have to go and do this, clean up a nasty river for a whole year. And you end up losing the bet. Do you really want to go home and tell them that? No. Well, here Jephthah has to tell his daughter, oh, by the way, I made a vow saying that if God wins, I'm going to sacrifice the first thing that I see. And guess what? You're it. I mean, that's where they're at right now. So, what do you think his daughter's response to this is? Look at verse 36. It says, And she said unto him, My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which hath proceeded out of thy mouth. Forasmuch as the Lord hath taken vengeance for thee on thine enemies, even the children of Ammon. And she said unto her father, Let this be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down the mountains, and bewail my virginity, and I and my fellows. So the amazing thing happens here. The daughter doesn't scold her father. The daughter doesn't get upset. She doesn't try to run away. She doesn't try to defend herself. She just says, well, if that's the promise you made to God, then yeah, I'll do it. We're going to see how amazing that is later on. So what does Jephthah say to this? Look at verse 38. It says, And he said, Go. And he sent her away for 2 months, and she went up with her companions, and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed. And she knew no man, as it was the custom in Israel, that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, 4 days in a year. So what happens is, Jephthah, what the daughter asks is, okay, if this is what you want, let me go up to the mountains and mourn this loss for 2 months. So Jephthah says, okay, I'll let you do that. And then when she comes back down, he ends up fulfilling this promise to God. Now the question is, did he actually sacrifice her as a burnt offering? That means like taking like a lamb and slitting its throat and burning it. That's what we're talking about here. Did that actually happen? Well, we find out in verse 39 that it says that she was mourning because she would know no man. And then it's a little misleading how the English translates the phrase in verse 31. When it says offer a burnt offering, when you go to the Hebrew, which is what it was originally written in, you could say it this way. It says, I will dedicate whatever it is to you, God, or I will burn it as an offering to you. So that was an option of this vow. The other option is that I will dedicate this person or this thing to you, God. So we see that by God's mercy, God allows him to not have to sacrifice his daughter, but allows him to just dedicate his daughter. Now you might say, so why was he so sad? Why was he crying? Well, what this means by dedicating to God, it means that he was setting her aside, meaning that she couldn't be with a man. She couldn't get married. She couldn't have kids. And if you remember, this is Jephthah's only child. So that means that Jephthah now can't have any grandkids. Now, I don't have any grandkids yet, but for those that have those, some people say grandkids are better than kids, right? You get to bring them in, spoil them, and send them home, right? No, it sounds like grandkids are great, right? I mean, everybody likes grandkids, or people to remember you by, to have family around you. It's great. So we understand that today, but back then it was an even bigger deal to have descendants, to have your line go forwards. It's kind of like in the Middle Ages, if a king had a wife that wouldn't bear him a child, especially a son, what did he do? Just moved on to the next wife until he found one, right? So having a lineage was a really big deal. So he's sad about that. And then think about it from her perspective, that now any plans that she had in her life, whether to get married, to have kids, all that's forfeit. Now she is just dedicated to serving God, which serving God is not a bad thing, but what comes with this is that hardship of not being able to have kids. So this was very hard for them, but we see that they show faith and that they go through with this no matter what. They go through this vow. And then what happens after this is Jephthah is a judge for 6 more years for Israel. And during that 6 years, Israel once again returns to God. There's peace. They're worshiping God rather than idols. So in conclusion to this story, first of all, have you put your faith in Jesus to save you from your sin? Like how Jephthah put his faith in God to save him from his enemies. Like we talked about before, our greatest enemy is our sin, because that separates us from God. And Jesus has to be the one to take that sin away so we can be right with God. So has that happened in your life? If you've not put your faith in Jesus to be your Savior, come talk to me or someone. We can tell you more about it. And in regards to Jephthah and his daughter showing faith, we first of all see Jephthah show faith and love in that he came back to people that hated him, cast him out, and thought him as worthless. Now think about how frustrating this would be, because it's one thing for you to do something, like you had control over something and you did it wrong and someone cast you out for that. But had Jephthah done anything wrong? Could he control how he was born? I mean, it's kind of like if somebody came and cast you out of your family because you had a big nose. Is that something you could control? No, you would be upset if people were judging you and pushing you away because of something you can't control. So here's Jephthah, didn't do anything wrong, he's being cast out, being hated. He had to move not only out of his family's home, he had to move to a whole other town. Even, I think Tom was even outside of Israel, so he was totally cast out. And here they come back saying, hey, Jephthah, long time no see. You want to come help us? We need a general, we need a judge. It could have been easy to just punch him in the face, right? Just, are you kidding me? Why would I come back after what you've done? But he shows love and chooses to have faith in God and comes back to help. Now, why could Jephthah do that? Because remember, these people saw him as worthless, as less than trash. Why could he come back to them? Well, he was able to do this because even though these people thought him as worthless, Jephthah found his self-worth in what God thought of him. And the same goes for us. Because you may feel at times worthless because of maybe what someone says to you, or because you keep on messing up. And you just think, wow, I'm just so worthless. Well, find worth in how God views you. And think about these several truths. So first of all, before the foundation of the world was made, God was thinking about you. Before you were born, He died on a cross so that you could be united with Him, so that you could be saved from your sin. He did that before you were even born. He formed you in your mother's womb. He didn't delegate this to someone else. No, He was intricately involved in putting every single cell of you together. And then not only to do that with birth, He has been with you every single step of the way, controlling and being a part of every circumstance in your life, and then drawing you to Jesus through salvation. God thinks the world of you. We talked about this in Sunday school. We can't prove this, but it really seems like if you were the only person that He could save by coming to die on the cross and raising from the dead, that He would do that. That's how much worth God sees in you. That He would sacrifice His own Son so that you could be His child. There's so much worth in you. And so we have, not only can we find encouragement for that in our life, knowing that God sees so much worth in me, we also have the privilege to share that with other people. Do you know what a lot of this world says? You're an accident. You are here by chance. It's a dog-eat-dog world. And you know what the natural response to that is? I'm worthless. People say I'm worthless. I'm just here by accident. I'm just here by chance. It doesn't seem like anybody really cares about me in the whole scheme of things. But you can tell that, you know what? The God of this universe thinks the world of you. He loves you. You are special. It's a wonderful message that we can share with people. And then you know what this also enables us to do? I think one of the reasons why we get angry at people is because they degrade our worth in our eyes. They say something demeaning, and you say, well, how dare you? Well, when I realize how much worth the God of the universe puts on me and what He thinks about me, I can, by God's grace, let go of someone degrading me, because I don't have to care what they think when the God of the universe thinks so highly of me. So that's another encouraging thing from that. So we see that Jephthah was able to show faith in this way and love, that coming back to even people that thought him as worthless, because he found his worth from what God thinks of him. And then we also see him show faith in that he goes into battle believing that God can win the victory. And then third, we see him show faith in that he goes through with this vow and promise even after God had already won the victory. Because think about it. It would have been easy for him to back out of the deal because God had already done what He promised. It's kind of like if someone, let's say you were in prison for some reason, and they said, you know what? If I let you out of prison, then you have to go kill the president. And then they let you out of prison, you're like, I'm not going to go kill the president. I'm already out, right? I don't have to keep up my end of the deal. I've already gotten free. It would have been easy for Jephthah to say, oh, when it's my daughter that comes out, I'm not sacrificing her. I'm not dedicating her to God. There's no way. You know, God's already won the victory. That's great. I'm just backing out of this. He could have done that, but by faith he trusted that God would make the best out of this situation. And then I think one of the greatest examples of faith here is Jephthah's daughter. Because we talked about how crazy that would be about betting all that on something that she has nothing to do with. Because imagine if your spouse or someone close to you bet your freedom on a football game. You think, what? You betted on that and then you had nothing to do with it? I'm not even a part of this? Why would you bet me on it? I mean, you probably feel like this, right? You probably get angry, or you try to defend yourself, or you try to belittle the person, or even if you went through with it, you would go with an angry attitude. That's a natural response, right? Well, Jephthah's daughter showed faith in that she just didn't belittle, didn't even really question. She just said, well, if that's what you promised God, I'll do it. And she went through it with a good attitude, and from what we know, she went and did that vow the rest of her life. So this shows great faith. So how could she have that kind of faith? Well, she realized that God is the hero that works even bad decisions into good outcomes, the best that they can be. And before we get into how God showed this hero part of it, of making good things into bad, I think it's important to note, why did Jephthah even make this bargain in the first place? Let's think about it. With all these other judges we've talked about, did any of them have to make a bargain with God in order for God to win the victory? No, none of them had to do that. God didn't need to do that. So why would he make that bargain? Well, I think that it's because he was trying to control the outcome. He was trying to control things. Because he's probably thinking something like, well, if I really want God to win this victory, if I really want God to come through, then I should try to control the outcome by giving him something that he wants. It's kind of like as a kid, I don't know if you ever did trading cards, like sports cards. Let's say that you really wanted the Joe Montana card. And your friend had it, but he's not going to give it up. He loves that card. So you know what I'm going to do to try to control the outcome and make it so that I can get this card? I'm going to trade him my Dan Marino card. And he'll trade me for that. So because I can give him something he wants that I know, I'll get the outcome that I want. Well, when Jephthah did this, what he was trying to do is he was trying to control the circumstance. And that's what brought him to this bad decision. You know we can do that as well? That we try to control and force things to happen, to work in the way that we think needs to happen. You know what sometimes it's like? It's kind of like trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It may seem like it's not going to work, but we're going to make it work, right? It's probably not the best thing, but in my mind it is, and I'm going to force it to happen. And when I'm trying to force and control things, that oftentimes leads me to bad decisions. Because I am trying to control all my little world to force it into what I think is best. And when I'm trying to do that, that can lead me to bad decisions. But by God's grace, when we can take our hands off and say, God, today this is your day. I'm going to take one step at a time and trust you, God, that you're going to do this. That leads us to much better decisions. Because the whole flaw of trying to control things is I'm saying that, God, you either don't love me enough or that you're not in control enough for me to take my hands off this. That's really the bottom line on why I feel like I have to control these things. Because I feel like I am best equipped and best motivated to make this work out. And that can lead us to forcing things and bad decisions. So when we trust God, take our hands off and go one step at a time, that leads us to oftentimes much better decisions. And then in regards to God making the best out of this decision that he made here, that Jephthah made, it's important to note that it wasn't that God could just totally reverse this decision, because remember, God is a holy judge, and what Jephthah did, he made a binding contract. And there was nothing God could do to get out of that contract. It's kind of like if a judge is a good judge, that even if their own child came before them and committed a crime, what would a good judge have to do? They have to uphold that hearing, that crime. So as God is the holy judge, he had to uphold this vow. This is one of the reasons why it was such a bad decision on Jephthah's part. Not only is it just a bad decision in general, there was no really way to get out of it. There's no way that God could totally get out of it. But God worked it out to the best possible. He didn't make it so that Jephthah had to sacrifice his daughter. He made it so that Jephthah's daughter could just be dedicated to God. Now, it had drawbacks because she couldn't have a family, couldn't have kids, couldn't have a husband. But she was able to have her life and to serve God with her life. So God made the best out of this bad decision. And God does the same for us. Because maybe someone around you has made a bad decision. And one of the hard things about bad decisions, it normally doesn't just affect us. It affects people around us. So maybe someone around you has made a bad decision that has affected you. Or maybe you have made bad decisions yourself, and that has hurt you or those around you. The good news is, and I love this phrase from the Bible, that God works all things out for good. Not just things that were not best, but they were okay. Not just things where, that was okay, but not like great. But even the worst decisions that we make or people around us make, God can even turn those things into the best outcome possible. Now, that doesn't mean that God can make it to where the natural consequences of sin don't happen. Because guess what? When we sin, there are just natural things that come about because of that sin. But God can use that bad situation, that bad decision, and make it so that we learn from it. Or that we can apply truths from God from that bad decision. Or help other people that have made those decisions as well. It's kind of like God has a perfect plan for all of us. And with our bad decision, we kind of veer off the path. Well, God, in His power, can help veer us back onto the right path, or put us in even a better path. So that doesn't mean that I shouldn't just care what I do because, oh, God's just going to work it out. I'm just going to live however. Like we said, there's still natural consequences that come about that. So that's not the way you want to go. But maybe you're here today and you're just discouraged because you're trying to live up to this perfect standard, and it's like, just keep on messing up, and just keep on messing up, and it's just discouraging. Why do I even try anymore? Well, the good news is that God can even take your imperfections, even your bad decisions, and turn them into something good. And not only can He turn them into something good, or make the best of them, He also forgives those bad decisions. So we have a forgiving, all-powerful God that can change these circumstances in our lives. So we can have faith and trust in God as He does that. And so also as we go from today, remember how worthwhile you are in God's eyes. The perfect Son, the creator of the universe, was sacrificed for you. God didn't make a mistake. That's how valuable you are in God's eyes. God loves you so much. You are very special. Find hope and strength in that. Let's pray. Father, we thank you that even though we're so small in the scheme of things and we mess up so much, that you, the creator of the universe, think the world of us. That we are so special in your eyes. That you've been involved in thinking about us before we were even born, before the universe was created by you. And that you died for us. You sacrificed the greatest gift possible for us. That you were involved in making us as we were being formed in our mother's womb. That you have been with us every step of the way. You've saved us from our sin through the sacrifice of Jesus. And we are just amazed that you think so highly of us. You say that your thoughts towards us are numerous in the sands on the sea. That our name is written on your hand. Our name is graven on your heart. May we find so much hope and rest and comfort as we realize how loved we are and how special we are to you. Pray that you would help us to see how special we are in that way, but then also to be able to trust you, knowing how loving you are and how special we are to you, and that you care about our well-being more than we do. that we see your power, and that you can turn anything into good, and just how that's really the ultimate showing of power, and that we can trust you, that this loving God loves us this much and is that powerful. God, forgive us for trying to control and force things to happen. We pray that you would help us to rest in you, to give it to you, to take it one step at a time, and just trust you, and do what you want us to do. And thank you that even when we do force wrong decisions, that you can even turn those things into good. We thank you for your grace and your power. Praise in your name. Amen.